Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talk It Up Tuesday. We're here with two of our staff advocates, Kim Rodriguez and Tori Cantu, to talk about Pride Month and the intersection with the turning point in the work that we do here. So before we get started with our conversation, though, I want to take just a moment to talk about the turning point. We're based here in Plano. We serve survivors of sexual violence in the North Texas area. We provide counseling, education, and advocacy to all those in need. We have a 1-800 crisis hotline number that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That number is 1-800-886-7273. Well, welcome, Kim and Tori. I'm so glad to have you here with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I wonder if we could get started, if you guys would mind introducing yourselves and tell us a little bit about why you chose to get involved with the work at the Turning Point.
I guess I'll go first. So I started coming to the Turning Point just because I'm a survivor myself. And I told myself that I wasn't going to turn my bad situation into something worse, that I was going to try to be there for someone else who was going through the same thing and just be that support that I felt that I had at that moment, and then just kind of, walk them through like what to expect, going forward.
Great.
And then I got involved because Kim got involved. So, and I've always had a heart for helping people, and just sexual abuse always just hits really hard, really close to me and in my past. And so helping her figure out what her next steps are, and then me finally able to like take the jump in and help out, has been really been a blessing.
Oh, great. So how long have you guys been with the Turning Point?
I have been with the Turning Point for a year and like 6 months.
So a year and 6 months since, no, I'm just kidding. A month and a half.
Awesome. Well, I wonder if you guys would, since this is Pride Month, we wanted to kind of elevate the issue of the LGBT plus community here. And I wonder if you could tell me maybe what Pride Month means to you.
Sure. For me, I am what they call a baby gay. So I only have been out, if you will, for like maybe 5 years, give or take. So for me, Pride is just, all your friends and family like coming together and supporting you, the community supporting you. And now that we're in Dallas, we see it, more so just because of the area we live in, and, we're able to experience Pride, which was 2 weekends ago. So it's just like coming together, being just fully supported, just having that support from everybody around you.
For me, I grew up, I came out a long time ago, so I wasn't really supported. And so I really enjoy seeing like the teenagers and the youth getting involved and actually having that support now and seeing like the big changes. So I just love how the community just rallies around it, and we're all just excited for them and how we embrace our baby gays.
That's great. Well, I wonder, what do you guys think are some of the greatest strengths about the LGBT community here?
I would say definitely being very supportive, especially when it comes to, you get a call and the survivor is part of the LGBT community. So like, and even the hospitals are very, just reassuring, like calling people by the right pronouns, and just, making sure that they're comfortable by the staff that's there. So it's just basically just, to me, it's just making everyone feel comfortable instead of just being kind of considered an outcast, if you will.
Yeah. What about you, Tori?
I would say the same thing. Space. What was the quote?
Just what strengths you think about the LGBTQ plus community here locally? What are some of the greatest strengths?
Got it. Sorry about that. But I think another cool thing is like when you talk about the hard things, like when you get with your friends, or you get with really any group of people, like nothing's off the table, and we've all gone through our own like instances or experiences that are a lot different than what other people, and in some way or form we can all relate to it. And so it's just really nice to just communicate.
Yeah. Well, so we know that sexual violence can affect anyone, regardless of gender, race, class, sexual orientation. Like it can affect anyone. But we also know that it's rooted in power and control, and it has a disproportionate effect on some of the marginalized groups within the community, especially on the LGBTQ community. So I wonder if you can just share what you think are some of the challenges and maybe the barriers when it comes to members of the community either reaching out for support, how that intersects with sexual violence, and then maybe some of the barriers to just getting emotional and support after trauma.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
So I think some of the hardest things that we face is that like it can never happen to us, right? Especially like women on women. We don't think that that would ever happen because we feel safe, and we also don't want to put that kind of stigma that since we are marginalized, we don't want to put another target on our back. Like, yes, it can happen to anyone, but at the same time, we don't want to get that person in trouble and have that statistic.
Yeah. What about you, Kim? Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, especially like women on women, they don't consider that as being a sexual assault. And I think too, a lot of people would be like, oh, well, no one's gonna take me seriously because it was with another girl. And I think when it comes to men, I mean, granted, I don't know a man's perspective per se, but sorry, we also have a kitten who's just being a kitten. But I think as far as a man's perspective, like it also just kind of is one of those things, especially if it's like a straight and then a gay man, then they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. They just completely shut down because they're also ashamed. So, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's probably having you both as advocates and making sure that we have advocates representative of the community around us helps to maybe bridge some of those gaps and hopefully tear down some of those barriers.
yeah.
So we also know that community connectedness, support for family, from friends, from community, a strong sense of identity, all of these are protective factors. And so they help serve to buffer against the experience of sexual violence. And they also are critical for an individual who has this trauma or experience on their path for healing. So I just wonder what that looks like here locally. Where do you see that those elements of protectiveness or of community connectedness and support here in the LGBT community?
In all honesty, it's really hard in Collin County. There's not a lot of resources for LGBT, especially in the youth. I know the high schools do a pretty good job at their like GL or their gay straight alliances. And I know like a lot of churches are actually trying to make like space, and especially in, like their youth groups and stuff. I was a part of a group that we tried to do like a LGBT support group, and what we found is the kids really just needed to connect with each other, and like they need to lean on each other, and it's hard for adults to kind of step into that space because they just need to. I mean, you can provide the space and provide the resources, but it's really just important for them to have their friends, and it's important for like parents to get involved and not like shun their kids away and just be open to have these conversations and allow them to communicate with the people that they need to. And also it's a lot of older LGBT people. We love it if you come and talk to us. Like if your kid's having an issue, reach out. I know you're always like one step away from an LGBT person, and we have great advice and tips. So
Yeah. Kim, do you have any other things to add that you found to be supportive here locally?
I would also say that I feel like Collin County isn't as strong as Dallas County as far as support goes. I mean, because there's a coffee shop in Oaklawn, I believe Union, and they're also a church, so they're very welcoming to the younger people, and then older, just to everyone come together and talk to them. And I think for Collin County, I think that would be a great step for them if something were to happen in Collin County, whether it be in Plano, McKinney, wherever. Just that way people aren't like, oh, I have to go to Dallas, oh, I have to I have to go further than just being at home, because a lot of people, they don't know about the outside sources in different counties. So then once they hear about them, they're like, oh, I don't want to travel. But I think if, there were something to be locally, then I think more people would just feel more safe at talking about, their sexuality, and then just talking with others as well. But I don't know. I just think that, there's still more growth to go. But I definitely think that, where we're at, there's a lot more support.
Yeah, that's great. I think at the Turning Point, we host a variety of survivor groups. And one of the survivor groups this summer period is an LGBT survivor support group. So all of those sort of efforts that people have to build networks and support are really critical in helping someone move forward in growth and cultivating resilience. So I guess my last question here is, what advice do you have for the greater community, how we can support our LGBT neighbors and friends and help celebrate kind of Pride this June? What would you say?
I would say just honestly being there for them. I mean, not everybody has gone through a traumatic life event, but at the same time, like, you don't know what your neighbor's feeling, and it just kind of goes back to just being a good human. Whether you just decide like this month you want to put a flag in your yard. I mean, just, you don't have to talk to anybody, but just kind of show that you're there if someone needs to, or you're just there, as just support. I mean, just seeing support like around your neighborhood, it's just, I mean, it makes your heart skip a beat a little bit. Because when I used to live in Princeton, I'm like, hey, it's Pride Month, if you want a flag, let me know. And I distributed flags throughout our neighborhood, and then just seeing like people reach out and be like, oh my God, do you have a flag? And I'm like, oh yeah, hold on, let me walk to your house and deliver it. So just seeing that, like, it's just very comforting that, like, they're supporting me without actually supporting me.
Yeah. What about you, Tori? Do you have any thoughts or suggestions?
Yeah, I think a big part of it too is like a lot of people, especially like in the suburban, they celebrate Pride in like kind of like a smaller way, and they don't like to be like as out and rambunctious about it, but just kind of include them and just bring it up in conversation. Like, it doesn't have to be a whole thing. I mean, it is if you do it, it's great, but also just let them know that you're there for you hear them.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I think that probably goes for so many different areas and groups, being able to hold space and just make connections with individuals, with the whole person, rather than trying to silo off pieces, to make sure that we're welcoming and available. So thank you guys both so much for speaking with me. And is there anything else you want to say as we wrap up?
I will say, working with the Turning Point, like, y'all are very supportive, and
Yes.
I feel inclusive, and I love the work that y'all are doing with LGBT community. And I mean, I've worked with a couple teens, or I've been with a couple teens, and they've expressed like how hard it is and how they don't feel like their family can accept them. So it's just really cool that you're putting us in places where we can
Go out and support them.
Yes.
I mean, it's a horrible situation, but at the end of the day, like, they see a rainbow at the end of it, just because, like, they went through this traumatic event, but then we're there, or someone else part of the LGBT community is there, and they're like, oh, there are resources. And just seeing that light in their eye back that, we're here as a Turning Point to help them, then that just kind of like makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, just to know that, we help them, and they can see like all the resources that are available for them that they didn't know.
Well, thank you both for all of your service here at the Turning Point and the work that you do with survivors, and for joining me today. So we'll be back here next week for Talk It Up Tuesday. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.